than whatever the other management kind of activities which are going on to develop a software product. Now we know very well how it is. How if you differentiate between a program that you are writing and software products as a whole, if you can consider. So it's we know that programs are very few lines of codes. Okay, maybe a few thousand lines of code that we are writing. Even in your project also, you may not have very large programs. And nowadays, because of these packages and all, it also cut down drastically. Okay? But software products are very very large. Okay, and the users are basically the programmer themselves. Okay, hardly your program will going to be used by somebody else. Okay, so you are writing, you are running that code, you are showing it to the teacher. That is the area you are confined to it if you are a programmer kind of thing. But now here in case of software products, it's not meant for the programmers, it's for the users. And users are of different levels. It's not necessary that user will know everything. Okay, he is very much familiar about what is called the systems, computers, and everything. You have to think from user's perspective, or company should think user perspective, and their levels of understanding, levels of expertise of using that system, how much they can use it, and all. If there is any error, what are the possible errors that they can do, and accordingly you have to do lot of validation kind of thing. So a lot of issues that you have to take care while designing a software or writing a software product. Okay, you will observe that whenever people are coming up with app, okay, if it is not well thought, app, possibly the demand of that web will going to decrease like anything. So people whosoever is designing, whosoever is developing, they always have to keep in mind the level of users, their level of expertise, so that it would be very very easy to use. That's why people call very user friendly software. Without that, there will be very less attractions with that software, and because of and what happened, you'll observe that initially when softwares are being launched, or let us assume some apps are being launched, so they're having a lot of thought process that usually goes on, and then they come up with, after a lot of plannings, they come up with a very, try to develop a good, very easy to use software or app. But you'll observe after a certain period of time, they go on updating that product. They're changing the UI, they are changing the different features and all. Why it is so? Because the task of software development or not ends by what is called uh, launching the first version of that, because that is, you can say, it's a starting point. Then they start acquiring the experiences of the users. Some way they try to get the feedback from the users, they collect it, they analyze it, and then they go by what are the major issues they find out from there, and then they go for the corrections, rectifications, upgradations, and then they come up with the updations of the software or app. Okay, so that means the user's experience is the ultimate thing. Okay, you have to satisfy the user, you have to attract the user while making a software product. Whereas in case of programs, it hardly matters. You can enter value for this, get the return. So it's very small program, and it's very very no need for others to satisfy and all. But you will observe that whenever we try to write, we try to always make a very user friendly kind of interactions. Why? Because though you are using, but it's just to make a habit to think about the other users, so that they can easily understand. Okay, so as a developer, you hardly think much about all those prospects. You just see whether my code is going to, this is my input, this is going to be my output, whether I can able to implement these things or not. So that means there are a good number of people should be there in the behind who will going to look after all those things. Okay. Now, as you know, that programs normally, as a single person, you are going to develop. but software products are basically developed by a team of developers. It cannot be by a single person. And team of developers of different levels, of different expertise, different experience. Okay, so that they need it to develop that thing. Okay, and if you are writing something, since you are developing it for your own self, so hardly you think about it to have a very user friendly interface. Okay, graphical user interface or GUI or UI, whatever. Okay, but whenever you are developing for the user, as I mentioned, you need to think much about the design, because every software industry, they have a separate designer of the screen. Okay, they may not do any coding, and they may not very well versed in the coding, but they know what should be the look I mean, how we're going to place the different component of the software on a screen. Okay, so that means the designing of the interface is very very important in case of this, and that's why after the initial design, developers or the software company, they are going on changing the interface time to time to make it more convenient. Okay, and another thing that which is really a very important part of any software development or software product is the documentation. Okay, in case of your program, I mean, though we are forcing you to do the documentation using command line and all, but this is very small kind of documentation that you can say that may help someone to understand what you have written, and there is some reason why a documentation is important. See, documentation is something that can be transferred from one person to the another person. So let us assume you are working in a company and you have go on writing arbitrary code, very cryptic way, and possibly it may not be very readable. Okay, it's not understandable by a next person. That is not the case that is going to happen in the software development, right? Because you may leave at any time, and that responsibility, the half-done job, need to be completed by somebody else. Now, in that case, how they will understand your code if your coding style is very cryptic? So that's why companies are always emphasizing standard protocols to write your code so that that can be understandable by anybody else. Okay. Now, so this is I'm talking about a simple documentation of the program. It's not only the program. For every phases of software development, you have to have a kind of a documentation, and based on documentation only the other people can understand, or the phases will going to continue from one phase to the other phase. That is, the documentation only will going to move from one phase to the other phase. Okay, so let us assume suppose someone has designed that thing, so they will explain what the design, what are the components and everything that will be there, and that document will going to be transferred to the developers, the programmers, and then programmers will try to understand what actually the designer has done and what is their role to do that thing. And accordingly, they just follow what is has been designed by the designer. And designer normally are, senior people. There are two designers here I have discussed about. One is the interface designer. They are not that very senior, but the software designer, they are relatively much senior people. They also call the software architect. Okay, they basically design how the software is going to be, what are the components of that software. Okay, it's not only about the UI. Now, it's basically whenever you write these things, you have a very less importance in the documentations and all. Okay, but in software products, it's a very large development. So you should have to have a company should have to have a very systematic documentations, and these systematic means it's a proper way of doing these things. Okay, it's not anything arbitrary that will go to write it. There is a style that they need to follow, and it, as I mentioned, that it varies from companies to companies. Okay, even once they develop that thing, definitely there must be some kind of user manual. Okay, user manual, you know that how to use. Okay, that how to use document also should be there after completion of the software. Okay, so that people will go through that, user will go through that, and then try to understand how to operate that thing. And normally user manuals are available in almost all kinds of product development. So that's why we called it a product, because it's not only the software, it is somewhat similar like any product that people are developing, any kind of product. Okay, Solvexcel is a product. Okay, Bonvita is a product. Okay, or a television is a product. Okay, now there must be some user manual, how to do, how to prepare, how to cook it. Okay, so that kind of things also very important for the software product, because software are much more complex than those kind of products. Okay, and programs you do very unprofessional way. Okay, I must say this unprofessional way. You are thinking something and you are going directly sitting on a screen, open up that compiler and go some doing some writing. You are basically checking whether it's working or not. If it is working, if it is giving the expected result, say let us assume checking the prime number, you are giving a prime number, and if it is saying yes it's a prime number, then you are checking not, you are giving a non-prime number, and then you are checking if it is giving non-prime number, it's absolutely fine, you will be happy and you will show it to the teachers or somewhere else. But it's not that the case in case of large product development, because that is the most difficult part, like to assuming where is the basically the error or bug. Okay, let us assume you have done a small, I'm just giving a small instance, let us assume you are writing a program somewhere and you are testing with one prime number, another is non-prime number, and it's given. Now, who knows what is that error until and unless you give it, let us assume -1, let us assume you are giving 0, let us assume you are giving 1, okay, let us assume you are giving 2, or some big number, how it will going to handle. It hardly matters at the initial stage, am I right? So you normally do it and then testing with both the cases, if it is giving appropriate result, you are happy. Okay? So that is the thing. Well, I mean that we normally follow. Do so far we are doing. That is we called it as a very ad hoc type of development. Okay, as and when you want, you sit and you are writing your own way. But software development is not that this is the case that is happening. As I mentioned, it's a basically systematic process of software development, and that's why we need something called software engineering. Okay, the software engineering process. Okay, software engineering means this the systematic way of developing a software product ultimately. Okay, a software product or a big software. It's not just simply writing some lines of code. Okay, so that's the basic difference between the programs and your software product. Okay, it's not we're not going to mention only software; it's a software product. Okay. Now there are different types of software development projects which normally continues or which normally happens in software industry. Okay. Uh, so one is basically called the generic software. Okay, generic software. What is generic software? In such cases, softwares are being, designed not looking into a particular kind of users or customers. Okay, it's very generic in nature, and they come up with some kind of utility. I can give you a very simple example because of which you may be able to understand. It's say let us assume Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Adobe Acrobat. Okay, if these kind of softwares are the brainchild of those companies, okay, that they are not considering any a particular subset or set of customers. They are making it for general use by all the users. Okay, so they develop it and then give it to them. So that means here people don't consider the specific need of any customers. Okay, they think their own and then develop a software and then give it to the market. Okay, now it's up to the user, they tune themselves according to the software and then utilize that. Okay, you cannot have that flexibility that I need this feature over there, I need that feature over there. No, there is no flexibility. Yes, of course, time to time based on the experiences or the feedback of the users. Normally, product developers or the companies, they normally uh, go for developing, upgrading their softwares. Okay, most of the apps which are coming nowadays, they're all generic software products because they never consider the specific requirement of but some few of the users. Okay, so that's why these generic software products are, I mean, a risky factor. Why it is risky factor? Because companies are coming up with some idea and then they develop by I mean, investing so much money. How they're investing? Because they have a lot of developers. They need money. Okay, they need money, and I mean, if it is done, if it clicks in the market, they're going to be a billionaire, and if not, then you can understand what is the loss it will going to incur, possibly because of which there are so many software companies, they sell out their company, or they may go for some kind of big huge loss. Okay, so it's a kind of very risky game for developing any generic software. And most of the generic softwares, whatever it's become popular now, you know how they are earning. Okay, how much they are basically earning from those softwares. And like Google, you see, I mean, they're basically developing generic software. Am I right? So generic software that they never think of, they never include directly any customer's requirement, but they think this should be the software, and that they normally give it to the customer, and people are try to train themselves, and then they use it for their own work. It's not that they are solving some requirement of the user, but they are basically try to use those generic software over there. So it's a very risky factor. And most of the Indian companies, they normally don't jump into this kind of generic software products. There are very few Indian companies, you can say, like they may come up with such kind of generic software product. Very limited names, you can say, that Indian company, they are coming up with some generic software. Yes, sir. Very few. Nowadays, people are involving themselves in generic software development, but gradually it's increasing day by day. But initially there was no craze about generic software development in India. Now, what is more common in Indian software industry? The Indian software industry, what they are doing, they are basically called software services. Okay, that is called, that's fall under software services. One that is called customized software. So you know what is customized software, I think. So what people will do is, say, let us assume in our examination department, they are now, I mean, they are desperately looking for a kind of a very good software to manage the entire examination process. Okay, it's not conducting the examinations, it's about managing the whole system. Okay, starting from question paper setting, arrangement, question paper arrangement, marks upgradation, certificate generations. Okay, lot of tasks which are there. Then they are desperately looking for a software. Now I am also in the part of the process, so that's why I can able to tell you what they are actually looking for. Now, what the examination department is doing, they are looking for some vendors, some companies who can come up, and then they develop a software for the examination department. Now, the factor is that most of the software companies in India, say, we have also approached TCS and all, and there are some few companies, even what is called uh, Oracle and all, they are also doing these things. Now, what happened in case of customized software? They already having some software which are running somewhere else. Okay, because examination system is not completely new. So, but yes, there are few things which may be plus minus in terms of their need or in terms of features. Now, what they do, instead of developing from the scratch, from the zero, they try to understand what is the requirement of the customer, and then they whatever product they have, they do some changes as per the current users or customers requirement. Okay, so by the way, so during my lecture, if my connection goes off or something happening, just send me a WhatsApp message. Okay, if some disturbances happening, because you don't know, it's very unpredictable when the network goes off. By the way, am I audible still now? Is the connectivity is there?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So now most of the software companies in India, they are more concentrating on the customized software, that they just tailor any existing their product, and then they customize according to the present customer's need. Okay. Then another type of service software services is outsourced software. What people do normally, I mean, there are some big software company, what they do, they take up the whole project, okay, and then they hire or give some components or part of that software to be developed by outsiders. Okay, some small companies are there, are so many software companies are available which are not very big companies, but they are good companies but small companies. Okay, what they do, they just always seek and look for some big companies. So big companies with their reputation, they can able to capture very large project, and then because the cost, or you know very well, the salary of a software professional or developer in a very big company is very high, because they are paying high. Okay, and the salary for a small company is not that up to that high. So what they do, because if a software company, they take up a big project, and if they allow the entire project to be developed by their own people, then quite natural that the price will going to be very high at the end, because they have to pay the salary. Okay. Um because mostly the software's price depends on the salary of that developer. Otherwise, it's nothing. No components or hardware. In case of hardware, you need a small components to purchase and then assemble. But in case of software development, major part of that expenses is on salary of the developers. And good seller developers, good programmers, they recruit good from the good institutions, or not only good institutions, from good skilled persons, because they're paying salaries. You know, news are coming like Google has recruited by 1 point some crores per year, or Microsoft is recruiting these things. That means they are giving very high price or high salary to them, because they expect that they're going to develop a very good software for them. But now there are some products which they cannot, because company always having a target to increase their margin of profit. Now, if they invest everything in the salary and all, then how they can increase that margin of profit? So the best idea is that they take out these things and give it to some of the small companies. Okay, small companies, and then small companies, since they have a very less cost, because they're giving less salary to the developers. Naturally, the costs of development will going to be less. Okay, of course, they need to have a kind of a good checkpoint, like whatever they're delivering, whether they can able to consider it or not, because you know that they are actually depending on some outsider. Okay, so that's why that way it basically reduces the overall cost of the software development. So if they go for an outsourced software development, by that means it's actually sublet their work to some other company. So the other company is also earning, and that company also earning, and they're giving it to the customer at the end. From this. So these are different types of software products. I mean, it's in use. So if you are planning for, I mean, some company, corporate sector, you will be going to be involved in these two type of activities only: the customized software or outsourced software. Okay? Is it clear to you? Is there any query?
So,
No, sir.
Okay, fine. Let's move. Now, what we are basically doing, or usually the small companies, I mean, small, I should not say company, you should say it's a software firm kind of thing, development firm. Okay, companies, many things to be on to get the name called a company. Okay, so software firm, what they are doing, or the style that you are basically following to develop a bulk program is basically called the exploratory software development. Okay, exploratory means trial and error. Okay, exploratory means trial and error basis style of developing software product or software. Okay, so what students of what we call the project, what is called um, in your project, final year or minor year project, you will observe, you will going to follow basically such kind of exploratory software development. Okay, what's that thing? You just try to get a concept. Okay, it's very, I mean, informal way of developing software. There is no formality, there is no process, systematic process to be followed over there. Okay, so very informal kind of thing. The main emphasis is on programming itself. Okay, so what programmers do, they make use of their own intuitions ki how to develop. So this is basically initial requirement how to solve. Okay, so that is the main focus. Okay, here the focus mainly is on programming. Okay, just make something which is usable at the end. Okay, and there are small firms or companies who are taking, they are also doing in that way, but hardly they follow certain kind of good principles which is available, or I mean which is available or maintained by some big companies only. Okay, small firm hardly they do that thing. If a customer comes to them, says ki, please develop a small software for us, they go and sit and try to understand what is their requirement, and immediately they start writing the coding and all. So there is a lack of designing, there is a lack of your documentation, which is the most important component. They hardly think much about the these things, like the documentations and all, and they don't follow those systematic steps or phases of software development. Okay, so they think how to do that thing. The programmer, it's everything, all in all. So programmer will going to use of their own intuitions. Okay, and they don't follow any kind of systematic style of doing this thing, because it's a small thing. They do not have any experienced person together with them. Okay, because this is a small firm, very few people have come together, and possibly they have tried to develop a company, and they don't follow any kind of a principle or process, systematic process to do that. Okay, so now based on that, they start doing these things. So what actually happens over there in case of exploratory style of programming or software development, they just go on doing these things. So as and when some error happens, okay, as and when some error happens, they try to modify the code, and then they again test it. So if it is fine, they go on, and ultimately what they happen, they complete that task. Okay, so so basically they try to get a very initial idea from the customer. Okay, what is their they want, and then they do a coding. Okay, and then test that thing. If it is fine, it's okay, they go ahead with the next phase of development. If not, they modify it, and once they tested it, and then they said, okay, my work is done, so they go develop. So that means it's basically what we call it, the called is what is that called, prevention is better than cure. Okay, whatever approach that exploratory software development is adopting, it's a basic curing approach. Means whenever there is a bug occurs, if they detect these things, they'll fix it up. Okay, but problem is that this bug rectification or bug clearing is not a very straightforward kind of thing, because as in when you are doing some coding, changing in the code to fix that bug, there is a ripple effect in the overall development or developed code. Okay, but hardly they matter for them. They ignore these side effects. Okay, ripple effect, means the effect sequence of effects. Bad effects may happen because of one changes over there, and it's remain undetected at initial stage, which may be detected very later phase of that, when by that time they have already delivered it to the customer. Okay, already they are in use, they have already started depending highly on that particular product, and and then that case, changing a major bug that have detected at the very later stage, it is going to be very challenging. You don't know what may happen. If there may be one bug has been detected, which need to be changed the entire software, okay, entire coding, who knows? Okay, then how they'll do? Because they have already invested in salary and everything, but customer has also already paid that thing. Now how it can happen? So that is a very risky factor in case of this kind of trial error kind of an software development, what we call it as exploratory software development. Now in case of software engineering, if they could follow the software engineering principles, what it says, or the people the people over there in the hierarchy, they try to do the prevention at the early stage, then I mean fixing those bugs later stage in the form of a cure. Okay, they follow the style in such a way, that there is a very less chance of any bugs may occur at the later stage, and if they detect also, if they fix it also, there will be very less ripple effect in the already developed programs or codes. Okay, so so that is the thing. I mean, it is happening in case of exploratory software development. Okay, that normally it's taking very ad hoc kind of approach, and most of the cases, software fails because of such kind of approaches that they follow. They consider hardly they consider any documentations and all. Hardly they keep any architect, good designer, good project managers, a set of programmers they recruit and then start writing these things. And mostly you'll observe it's not available in our side, but these trains are very common in cities like Bangalore, your Hyderabad, okay, in Delhi also, okay. There you're going to get every here and there are small software firms. They are basically dependent on those outsourcing. Okay, they are always having a tie up with some good companies, and accordingly they are developing and they are earning or paying. Okay, but they don't much follow the systematic process of doing these things. Okay, so that is the thing that actually leads to the software crash, software failure. Okay, in the later stage of that. So exploratory software development is not going to be encouraged by any good software development company. Now, how it actually comes, the software engineering principle is, earlier programs are being developed in assembly language. Okay, very limited users. Okay, very limited use also, and most importantly, there is a less complex problems. Problems they try to solve is very simple. That's why the programs or code that they are writing, they are also not very complex. Okay, and then some way they are managing over. Okay, now every programmer they have their own style of writing. Okay, see I mean how the actually experience of people are gathering. Okay, how the people are experience are gathering, and year after year the people they are learning from their bad experiences and all. Where the software can fail, why there will be a failure of the software and all. So year after year, generation after generations, people are all documented some way. what should be the style. They're improving those things with new experiences and all, and then it's kind of an evolution. Okay, it's an evolution that happened. I mean, from style of developing a software, from writing a small program to software product. Okay, it's a huge roadways. Now, I mean, the world has passed through. Okay, and with corrections, rectifications in their style of working. Okay, so initially, the way that you do, you just simply concentrate on your own programming. Okay, you it hardly matters about indentations and all. Hardly matters about the comments line that you are doing. Hardly matters for you like the giving a proper variable name, where to write, how to do these things. Everything is completely you are basically ignoring. So that means you have your own style of writing a program. Okay, and so that is the thing. It's what we called it as this is nothing but exploratory kind of programming. That as and when some bugs will going to be I mean appear, then you are the person who can able to do that thing and you can able to correct. If the same thing has been given to somebody else, it will take much more time to fix or correct that thing, because because you have your own style of program writing, and you can understand where the possible location of occurrence of that particular error. Okay, so that's why it's very challenging in such cases. Now gradually it comes the high level programming languages, so the complexity increases. Okay, uh, because and at the same time, low level coding has been, the burden of writing low level codes has been reduced drastically. Okay, because they are creating some kind of abstractions from machine code to the high level code. Okay, and you know what is the current scenario, right, which is going on, which is more and more abstractions happen in case of programming languages. Okay, writing a program in C and writing a program in Python, it's drastic difference over there. Okay, in terms of ease of writing a program. So I mean, the Python program writing is very much easier nowadays. And writing a C program is quite difficult, because in C you have to do everything in from scratch. But in case of Python, people have already developed. Okay, and these are all well tested. Okay, these are all well tested. That's why you consider package as highly reliable. Okay, that if you are considering a package, say NumPy. Okay, so NumPy, whatever files or functions which are over there, you can believe those packages blindly. You know that there is no error. With that assumptions, you will start writing your own program by using those. So that means a good level of abstractions happen with the passage of time. Okay, so that basically drastically that the changes over there. But the factor is that though the coding style is there, but still whatever you are doing, they're really still just exploratory type of program, because you are doing your own style or in your own way. Okay, you don't follow any systematic process, and if the debugs happens, if bugs happens, then you start immediately doing the debugging or doing some changes in that particular part of the code, and as I mentioned, what is the consequences of correcting fixing a bug as and when it is occurring over. Okay, and program size are already okay, because the number of lines are also reduced from assembly language program, because the same small set of, it's a small task if you have to write it in assembly language programming, and same if you are writing in high level programming language, the number of lines will reducing drastically with the passage of time. Okay, so the small program that you have to write it from C, and now the same program if you write it in Python, okay, then you have to write very less number of code. Okay, so that is definitely it would be there, but still it is an exploratory kind of thing. You cannot avoid such kind of errors which may happen. Now gradually they come not starting from what is called the just programming. Okay, programming. Then people started thinking, he before going to the programming, can we think more better way? Okay, better way, so that error, possible error can be avoided. Okay, in the later stage of the software design. Okay, so why people have started thinking is that because they started solving a very large problem now, day by day. You can observe that software which was there earlier, now it has become more and more complex nowadays. Every software nowadays will observe AI based. Okay, you take it, these things, they're complex. That means they are incorporating more complexity, and the complexity, more complexity means you are giving more facilities to the users. Say, for example, I was just trying to do these things, try to purchase a spec. Now I have downloaded this called this lenscard.com. So they have incorporated such a good feature that you don't have to go to the market or shop to purchase or choose your frame and everything. So everything you can see in 3D view, it will show you how you look like and everything. So such a things are is possible, to make us very easy to do that thing. See, think about Google Map. I really, I mean, appreciate this kind of product. Google Map, you you don't know where you have to go. You know where you have to go, but you don't know the roadways how to go and which road to be taken up. You can completely depend on Google Map. Okay, you so put the destination and you start, and it will tell you where to. Looking at your current location, it will going to perfectly, it will able to tell you which side you have to go, left side, right side, how after how much meter you have to take a turn. So you can completely depend on these things. What is called Google Map. I don't know. I mean, there is a funny part that I have heard. I don't know whether it's a Google Map or some Google Map like software. I don't know whether it's a true or reality or not, but I have seen in some news then that by mistake a person have I mean that map directed wrongly, and then they take that car inside a metro station. Okay, so that is also happening. That is also happening. But I have not heard about Google Map. I cannot recall exactly whether it's in the error of the Google Map or whether the news itself is a fake news. That I don't know. You know, nowadays social media news you cannot rely much on that. But anyway, the main idea here is that day by day, more and more features you are adding, so more and more complexity you are adding into that. Okay, more adding into the software, and naturally, though the number of ports are one way less, but another way it's increasing again because you are solving more and more complex problems. Okay, so if you bring more complexity into your product or program, naturally the exploratory programming style will not going to be very effective at all, because who will going to do see that this kind of error, if it is can be an exploratory type of programming, that Google Map and all, you cannot depend on that particular product. Okay, because it's very risky kind of thing. They will take it somewhere else. Okay, instead of showing road, they take it to the river. Okay, so they will ended up with a near to the river. So that means some way this kind of exploratory program style will not going to be applicable in such kind of complex program development or software product development. Okay. Uh, mm, and the fact is that it's very difficult at that time, that complexity. I mean, if they go for solving these things, okay, the simple programmers, they cannot develop a very cost-effective way in correct program, because you know, if you go on, if your complexity of the program is very high, then there are chances of occurrence of bugs, and then you are going on fixing that thing, and that fixing may give ripple effect to the other part of the program, and this will continue. Okay, and then you cannot end up within a short period, and then if the period extends, if the period extends, then your cost of the product will also going to increase. Okay, and but the customer is not going to pay you that extra money. You have to, the customer will negotiate at the early stage. If this is the, you calculate what is the cost, what will be the price, and then accordingly I'll pay, and there will be, if any other extra cost, customer will not going to pay. So that's why the profit margin will going to either maybe leads to loss, spoiling of the reputations of the company. Lot of things can happen. Okay, if they don't follow some systematic process. Okay, so then another thing that I have mentioned, repeatedly I have mentioned, programmers, if someone has written and then he left that job, and then that needs to be taken care by somebody else, it would be very, very difficult. Without a proper documentation, without a proper style of writing a code, it would be very, very difficult for the other coder, new coder, to understand your code, half done code, okay, or already code that you have written, to use that in that product, in the remaining part of the development. Okay, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll also see later on, that another very, very important and most lengthy process is maintenance in software development. Okay, the maintenance task. So maintenance task means what? Whenever there is an error occurs, they have to go inside the code and then find out where is the reason, and then they try to fix it. But if it is not understandable at all, the programs, how they will going to understand where is the error? Okay, where is the error and what is the reason of that error? And if you are changing these things, is there any something else will going to happen? So that's why. So basically, what they happen, they normally they adapt something called control flow. Okay, the control flow or control structure of any good programs. Okay, big programs, control flow. Control flow means different components will going to be there in a major component. Big components will be going. We have to identify, we have to isolate, and then which component is interacting with the which component. Okay, that's need to be designed at the very beginning. From looking into that, you can easily understand if I do some changes over there, a particular part of the program, is there any dependency with the other? What is called the other part of the program. So that can be easily visualized. Okay, it can be easily visualized, and then relatively it will be easier for fixing any bug in that code, or to handle a large complex program development. Okay. So what is that actually control flow? Basically, it's control flow structure. What it indicates, it's basically a sequence in which program instructions are executed. I'll show you some simple analogy of that. Okay. And this sequence is actually applicable to other product development also. Okay. So this basically helps to understand the problem itself very well. These also help one another way, that is decomposition of the program. What we have discussed in the last class, that whenever you have a very large software product to be developed, and if it is very, very complex, it cannot be developed in a single shot by a single person or a team of persons. What is the way of handling the large problem handling is decomposition, making part of the whole task and subdivided into some teams. Okay, and then that way basically what will happen, that individually all the teams will going to develop their own part. We normally call it as a software modules. Okay, we call it as a software modules. So the software modules will going to be assigned to individual developing team, and then they develop it parallelly. So parallelly means what happens? It will overall time to develop that software is going to be within a deadline, because software deadline, development deadline or delivery deadline is very, very critical and crucial, because customer always look for the deadline. If you cross the deadline, or company cross the deadline, possibly they can go up to any level. Okay, the customer can go up to analyze this thing. They can cancel that project. Anything can happen. Some serious, big customers. Okay, so you'll observe, if you join some software company, you'll observe that possibly developers need to work day and night without sleep. without going to home. Okay, nowadays scenario is different because of Corona, everything is work from home. But even then, if since you have done a systematic planning before starting that work, you know if I employ this much of people into that module or this much of team that I am going to constitute, then I can able to complete before my deadline, because they always consider before the deadline, because there will be some slip of deadline. Okay, so that the ultimate, so that they can reach to the final deadline. Okay, it's no way it should cross. Okay, now in so many issues we will see later on what actually in software industry they normally happen. There may be a mix up of experienced people in the company. You cannot have all experienced developer, all programmers are not experienced, so that the less experienced people take more time in comparison to the inexperienced people. So a lot of issues which are there. If you keep more number of experienced people, you may have to pay more for them than the freshers. So there are trade-off always happening between this. So we'll discuss it later on. So, but if you have a kind of a planning, okay, step-by-step planning for that software, which component to be developed, which component to be ended up, anything. So this is what we call it as a flow charting of the technique. Okay, like control flow, where the control will going to flow. So that means this control flow charting is basically to represent the program's control flow. It's a very simplistic thing I am talking about. It's a big program writing. It's not about software development point of view. Okay, it's basically programs, a big program. If you want to do, if you can design somewhere, even in your project and all, if you can do it in your minor or major project, then you will observe that what are the things to be done. Okay, it is early planning. Okay, what things to be done and which to be done before which one. So these dependencies you can able to view if you do that thing. So I don't know whether it's there or not some example. Actually, I don't, so let us assume this kind of an example. Okay. Now this is basically a kind of a car manufacturing example. Okay, what they have to, this is a kind of a flow. Okay, workflow you can say, or data flow, workflow here you can say. See, I mean, you cannot you cannot start paint and testing before doing rest of the things. Okay, you see this particular part, paint and test. Okay, paint and test you cannot do. So that means the paint and test is depending on the fitting the wheel. Fitting wheel is depend on fitting doors, or you may think of we can do parallelly all those space, fit engine, fit door, fit wheels, but you cannot do painting and testing before these all those phases. So that means if you can plan the different tasks or components of that software, okay, well ahead, then possibly it will help you to understand what to do, what to be finished first, which tasks to be completed first, which tasks can be executed parallel. Okay, parallelly, and finally the product will go to come. So this is a kind of an analogy that I am giving from any manufacturing component, any product manufacturing point of view. Okay? So we'll have to see this kind of flow, data flow diagram. It's called data flow diagram. We'll see later on. Okay. Very quickly, I'm going to do these things. So basically, if you can have a kind of a design or drawing in a piece of paper, it is very easy for you to understand what the way that you're going to process or follow. Okay, what process you will follow, what to do next. That you can give it over there. If there is no documentation, if there is no such kind of structures, kind of thing available in pen and paper, then you will going to be become blind at one point of time to what you have done, what need to do over there. You are basically aimless kind of thing at the end. So software is a product. There is no kind of scope of doing much more experiments. Okay, so I mean, and it's a time-bound task activity. So you have to have a well planned. There will be some thought process should be worked from very early stage of the software development. Okay. So normally what happens in case of programming, so if you can go for a program, if it is a very complex kind of program, then if you start doing these things like a flowchart, okay, you know that flowchart is going to be very, very meshy, okay, it's having a link from one state to the other state, and it will go on very zigzag kind of thing, and it will be very difficult later on for debugging those kind of diagram and all. Okay, and more specifically, why we normally called it as that go-to. Okay, go-to statements. I mean, during your C class also, I have mentioned that go-to feature is there, but try to avoid go-to, because go-to makes this control flow very, very clumsy. Okay, because there is no systematic I mean traversal within the program. It will not going to give you very neat and clean kind of thing. You can jump from one place to the other place at any time. So that makes a control structure very, very hazy, messy. Okay, so and it would be very difficult to understand, at the same time very difficult to debug also. So if you have a very good logic, then the same program you can write it if you are well planned. So I should not say logic. If you are very well planned, then without using GoTo also you can write that program. Okay, so that's why people consider GoTo is not a very, very good style of writing any program. Okay, uh, so I'm just skipping these things because it is related to the assembly language, because I don't know whether you have studied assembly language microprocessor or not, but you will see that jump statement. Jump statement is equivalent to GoTo statement. Okay. Now, whatever program we are writing, these are all basically called structured programming. Okay, they are basically very structured programming, because some way you can have a very good, clean, diagrammatic representation of your program. That's why you normally call it as a structured programming. Okay, if you that means if you can try to plot whatever is happening in your program in a piece of paper in the form of a kind of a small representative diagram, like a flow chart or control flow. Okay, you can have a very nice, more simplistic view. You can give it. That means your planning is very, very good for developing that software. Okay, so it normally have a sequence of code. You may have some selections of some particular statement, or you may have iterations and all. So that means if then else, for loop or any type of loop and all, everything functions, everything that happening over there is basically related to the structured program. Okay, but it's not necessary that in case of structured program you need to have a functions and all. So modern programming, these are all function based. So these are all normally called as the functional, or we will see that thing now. It is not only functions, they are more advanced object oriented. Most of the cases are objects and all. Python and all, everything they are depending on the objects. Functions you are using, no problem, but they are also under some for objects only, under some class only. Okay, so nowadays everything is object oriented programming based software development. Mix up, you can say it's a mix up. Normal sequence programming is also there. Object-oriented programming is also there. Okay, so data flow basically is style. You're going to study later on. We also have to do some assignments on data flow. I mean, drawing data flow diagram for some problem that I'll give it to you, and then you have to think how you can solve that problem, and accordingly you should be able to draw it. So represent how the software will going to work. Okay. So for that we'll see in details. It's just introduction. So what happens basically, it identifies what are the inputs, what are the outputs, what are the functions, the major activities, tasks that my software is going to perform, and then once it is done, then we can have a kind of a diagram like this. Okay, there's some circles which we call it as a process. The parallel bars that you have seen, these are called data storage. Okay, and the lines or the statement, that is arrow. The arrow indicates the flow of data from one process or one function to the other function, and what data that you are passing, that is written just above that every arrow. Okay, so this is the thing that and at the end you see that what is called the car. mm, you are developing, that is the output from there. So input, output, everything we're going to specify in control data output. Now, as I mentioned, the recent things and still it is going on is basically the object-oriented design. Okay, object-oriented design, and there are so many good tools which are available. Okay, good tools which are available for designing object-oriented technique, because object-oriented programming or object-oriented software developing are inbuilt in handling very complex problems. Okay, that's why people go for object-oriented techniques, because first thing is that decompositions or modular development is already there in object-oriented programming. There as a feature. Abstraction is another thing that object-oriented supports. Okay, to avoid reuse or to utilize reusing of the code so that you don't have to bother much about something over there. See such kind of features in the form of inheritance and all. These are all inbuilt inside object-oriented techniques. So that's why most of the modern software development they consider such uh, environment or programming style that can be implemented through object-oriented technique. Okay, so it some way whatever you can design it very easy to map from a pen and paper design to a software. Okay, and that is why there are some good number of software products are developed are available, like IBM Rational Rose and all, where you can design the whole software in your screen. Okay, just drag and drop way. Planning is yours, but drawing you can do very nice way, and it goes up to certain level that it can generate the skeletal structure of the code itself. Okay, the documentation also. Okay, so everything nowadays become automatized. Okay, what we called it as case means computer assisted software engineering. Okay, computer aided software engineering. Okay, so that means software engineering itself now can be done through software itself. So the documentation is going to be easier. That there will be initial design and the drag and drop design. That is then from there you can directly go to the skeleton structure of the program, whatever be the language. Okay, it will give it up the skeleton structure. Now it's up to the developer. Just fill that those structure. Let us assume it's generating a function. Now they have to fill it up. What is the input and output? It is also going to be there. Now you have to fill the function body with the logic. Okay, that is the only thing that developer will do. Rest of the things are going to be very systematic over there. So that is the benefit that, as I mentioned, that data abstraction, that is decompositions. These are the main features because of which object-oriented programming software development is very attractive or demanding now. Okay. So how it is happening now? If I sum up these things, we started with ad hoc programming, what we call it an exploratory type of programming, and then it goes for the control flow based things, and then it goes for the data structure based. And that is from control to data, then data to data flow. Okay, so that means control flow is basically very limited with the small programs and all. Okay, and then since you know that you have to have bring some kind of abstractions into that. So data structure actually brings certain level of abstractions. So through that, say let us assume stack. If you are saying the stack, you don't have to bother about much about inside details of stack. Okay, you know that stack will I'm going to use it. So this kind of design it has started, and then they even forget about data structure and all. They then started like from where the data will going to flow among the processes. Okay, what are the input, what are the output? Okay, that is data flow. And then finally, what is going on right now is object-oriented, software development. So, for style of software development is object-oriented development. Okay. So that I have already discussed the exploratory style and modern software development practices. So I'm skipping these things. Okay. Now let's start with very important, that is called software lifecycle. Okay, software lifecycle. Um, what is that software lifecycle is? Uh, Basically, since it's a systematic process, basically a systematic process, so um, I mean, that means every software having a kind of a life. Okay, starting from its creation till its end. Okay, and if there is no end, naturally it will go on. Okay, so that's why we called it as a software life cycle. That means how the software development will pass through, okay, different phases. Okay, so that is what we call it, the series of identifiable stages that a software product undergoes during its lifetime. Okay, during its lifetime. So that means a car manufacturing, considered a car manufacturing, you have to have an engine separately developed, then you have to fit it with the chassis, then you fit your wheel, then you fit your steering, door, painting, testing, and then car will come. So that means the car development have a life cycle. Okay, where from it will start and where it will till the development of that particular car. Okay. So now what happens? It started with something called feasibility study. Okay, feasibility study is done by some of the very senior people in the industry. Okay, and they are basically what they do. They mainly interact with the customer, because say in case of customized software, as I mentioned, customized software. Okay, this is applicable only in case of customized software. Feasibility study also done by the generic software also, but that is different way of doing it. They think they conceptualize the idea of their own, and then they start doing a kind of a field study. Ki what should be there? They try to gather the experiences of different users, and then they develop their own. But I am talking here about customized software. Now, in case of customized software, what actually happening? The feasibility study, basically the people, they sit with the customers and they do a series of meetings. Okay, series of meetings with the customers, and after that, the only target is that to understand what is the requirement. Okay, to understand what is the requirement, and also to study really it is possible to implement or not. Okay, because users can give any arbitrary dream. Okay, they can give any arbitrary dream. So that may not be possible or feasible. Okay, feasible for the possible or feasible for the company to develop that thing on a valid point of time. At the same time, price also. This is also important. The requirement may be any arbitrary thing by a customer, but can they able to develop, number one, looking into their set of expertise which are there in their company, number one. Number two, can they able to finish it within a deadline? Number three, is it really possible to implement that thing? Okay, so lot of issues which are on the negotiation of the price. Okay, the cost. So customer having a budget, and companies may have a separate estimation. Now, if doesn't meet, so naturally they cannot take up that. Why they are going to take up? Okay, so that's why this feasibility study is the very early stage people are doing. The companies are doing just to say whether they are going to take up the project or not. Okay, so if they are taking it up, so naturally they have to do it. Okay, they cannot end in the midway. Now let us assume the feasibility study is successful, then they start gathering what is the actual requirement of the customer, because customer having a different way of communicating with the company. So company people may understand well, may not understand well. Okay, if it is not, if a product is already in use, then it is very easy to communicate. Means, say, examination department wants to develop a software for them, and this system of managing the examination activities in the examination department, I'm talking about the regular system, manual system. It's not something very different from other institutes or other examination system. Minor changes here and there. So in that case, it is very easy for the software company to understand. Okay, fine. So you want these things. Okay, you want this thing, that thing. So that requirement analysis is very easy, because they are already experienced of handling such kind of scenarios or situations. But there may be some scenarios where there is no experience of. That's why nowadays companies don't take such risks, that if they don't have any such kind of experience in the past, they normally don't go further, because they may end up with nothing. But once they have a kind of an experience, or already there are some products which are running somewhere, then they come up and they with very minimum effort they may do the customizations and give it to the customer. Okay, so requirement analysis basically to understand from the user what is their requirement, and they do a kind of a thorough analysis of that, and they write it in a formal way in the documentations and all, and then that is what we call it as a specification. Okay, and it's not like a simple story writing. There is some particular format they need to follow, and as I mentioned in the last class, that ISO 9001, ISO 9002, or CMM level companies and all, they have to follow certain style of SR, what we call it as SRS document, software requirement specification document. Okay, I mean, because of which only they can get able to get the tag called CMM company, CMM level company, CMM level 5 company, 4 level company, or it's an ISO something company, because they are following some standard. That's why they are getting that kind of a certification. Okay, so that means they have to do that specification, and that specification is the starting document, and it's the most vital document in software development, because that is the document that rest of the team or rest of the phases will going to follow. Okay, starting from design, coding, testing, maintenance, everything they will going to follow the actual specifications. They cannot deviate from specifications what it has been done, and that is why once they document that specifications, there will be an agreement between customer and the company. Okay, that no party can deviate from that specification. Okay, so the party means the customers cannot say no, I was expecting these things, you are giving these things. No, it should be clearly agreeable by both the parties. Okay, and similarly, if there is an agreement, software company cannot deviate that thing. They need they need to develop, and then they go for the, after that it goes for the design. Okay, software design, that is design in pen and paper. Okay, software design in pen and paper, and then once the design is completed, and then it goes for the coding, and then there will be a separate, once the coding is done, there will be something called testing. Okay, integration is also there if there is a modular development of software, so integration is also there, the software integration, and then finally it goes for the testing. What the testing is, there is a separate team, completely separate team for testing. Now what you do, you are writing your own and you are also testing. But in software companies, the testing team is completely a different team. Nobody from the developer team will going to take part in testing. Okay, so it will going to be completely independent testing team. Okay, and then once it is done, after that they normally give it to the customer. Customer will start using that product. Okay, and then the software will go to maintenance phase. Okay, and it will go on. Okay, maintenance phase will go on. Normally, people call it as AMC. Okay, that normally the company is also charging for certain period of time, like 4 or 5 years. They give it free of cost. Okay, though there is nothing called free, but free of cost. And then after that, what happens? If the vendor wants, they can give additional things and then give it to the annual maintenance charge for that software, and you're going to feel like stunned. Like for our examination system, that examination system is also not well developed or neither having very good features. The university is paying, I think, 45 lakhs per year. Okay, so can you imagine that how much money just sitting somewhere else without doing anything they are earning just with a thing? If there is some bugs happens, then who will going to correct? Because other company will not come and then correct. For TV, it's fine. If there is any error, you can give it to any mechanic or any service center; they will correct it. But software is something not like that. Okay, it will going to be fixed by only that particular company. Okay, only that particular company, because they knows how they have developed. Okay, so that's why they are earning also. Software company through maintenance also they are earning. They are keeping a set of people just for doing this maintenance task. Okay, so we're going to see gradually all the steps side by side. So formally, if I define what is Gauss life cycle model, okay, so there are different. So this is a life cycle, and there are different models which are available for life cycle. So that means different style. A company may follow one type, another company may follow another type. Okay, so that means they can adapt any particular style. What we call it as a model. Okay, so it's basically a descriptive and diagrammatic model of software lifecycle. Okay, so what it's doing is basically identifies all the activities for that software. Okay, and then as I mentioned, the chain of work, the dependencies, the precedence. Okay, ordering that you can do it from there. What phase to be done, what phase to be repeated. Okay. And the models always, these life cycles are divided into phases. I have discussed about these phases in the last one. These are the phases mainly it will going to be there, but how to do that thing, they are only the the models are actually varying. Okay. Okay. Today let us end over here because it's really difficult to keep the patience for these things. For you also, but you must feel free to ask at any time, even in the next class also. And what it's called, like you just read the book from Rajiv Mall software engineering book. Okay, Rajiv Mall software engineering book, which is also mentioned in your syllabus. So Rajiv Mall latest book, you just go through that. I'm just covering his book only. So immediately after the class, if you go through whatever I have discussed, possibly it will going to make you ready for all your examinations. Because these are mostly the conceptual kind of thing, storytelling kind of thing. Okay, it's if we go on telling, then possibly it will go beyond your above your head sometime. Okay, so that's why to make it more stronger, the concept whatever I have discussed, you please go through the book. Go through the book, and if you face any kind of queries, if you have, so we can discuss it in the next class. Okay, is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
Okay.
yes,
So
sir.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to waste much time into that. Okay, so let's see how quickly I can able to finish it up. We have very less time to do that thing. So let's see. Hope for the best. I don't want to give much burden on you. Okay. Okay. See you then in the next class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.